Hello and welcome to BarChat, the Connecticut Bar Association series of interviews with leaders in the law and in business. My name is Doug Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Bar Association. And my guest today on my left is Walt Hampton. Welcome, Walt.
Thank you, Doug. I'm so happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Walt's a CBA member, most importantly, a lawyer, adventurer, executive coach, and author. His latest book is The Power Principles of Time Mastery, which I understand is just going into a second printing.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Very exciting.
And our topic today is really the idea of debunking the myth of time management. Now, we've both done our fair amount of coaching over the years with lawyers and others. And I talk about time management as a myth, and people look at me and say, well, why is that? So why do you look at time management as a myth?
Because time can't be managed. Time just is. Time is going to march on whether we like it or not. We cannot possibly manage time.
Yeah, managing time would make you believe you can get more of it, or you can make it go slower or faster. And unless you've got the time machine from Back to the Future, that's not really going to happen.
The only thing we can manage is ourselves.
And our choices. So why is it so important for lawyers to get a handle on time management?
Because we have so much to do. The greatest crisis of our age is not that we have too little, it's that we have too much. Too much information, too much stimulation, too much to do, too much on our plates, too much coming at us all of the time. And if we don't get a handle on mastery of our time, mastery of ourselves, everything gets done partially. I love the phrase continuous partial attention, because that's what we engage in all day long, is this continuous partial attention.
But we live in the world of multitasking. We pride ourselves on...
Can't be done.
But everybody's doing... Why can't it be done? Everybody thinks that people are texting and driving. They think they're multitasking.
I can tie my shoes and have a conversation with you, but any high-level processing, what we know physiologically, we know it by science, is that what the brain actually does is toggle back and forth between tasks. And toggling, most of us who are lawyers get pretty good at. We can toggle really well, but there's a time cost to toggling. So here's what's interesting about toggling, is that the cost has been measured scientifically. And at the low end, the cost is 12 minutes. And at the high end, the cost is 25 minutes. So if we're having a conversation and all of a sudden you take a phone call, or you attend to an email alert, and then come back to the conversation, it takes you a period of time to reconnect with what we're doing, refocus what you're doing. Why
do people feel like they're so good? If we're toggling and we're wasting this time, why do people feel like they need to be multitasking to be efficient?
Busy is an addiction.
Busy is an addiction.
Busy is an addiction. Busy makes us feel good. Those of us who are high performers, who are lawyers, we like that. We have a need for speed. We have a need for busy. Busy makes us feel important, makes us feel significant.
So we're adrenaline junkies?
Many of us are. Many of us are.
Wow. So what are the implications in your law practice if you are in the middle of something, you take that call from that client, but your mind's really someplace else? What implications does that have if you're not focused in your practice?
Multitasking has the impact of reducing your IQ to the level of an 8th grader. It has been measured to reduce your IQ by as much as 30 points. In fact, it has been shown, we're not endorsing this in the CBA, but it's been shown that your acuity level drops below the acuity level you would have if you had just smoked a joint.
No kidding. So meanwhile, you're talking to your most important client, you're gathering facts for your case, you're doing counseling of whatever your matter is, and you're not really at the cognitive capacity as a lawyer. That puts you at risk for malpractice, right?
Huge mistakes as a result of trying to multitask.
Well, now that everybody's nervous, what can someone do to say, I'm on this treadmill, I'm multitasking? What are some concrete steps people can take to try to break this cycle, break the addiction that comes along with multitasking?
The most important thing starts here: getting clear on what matters most. Getting crystal clear on what matters most. In your day, in your life, over the course of decades, what matters most to you? Because we are challenged by so much all of the time, but not everything has the same amount of importance. And so what matters most? What tasks matter most? What values matter most to you?
So if you're a typical lawyer, a lot of things matter most. taking care of your staff, taking care of your clients, taking care of your family, making money. You might have 20 things.
Yes.
How do people choose?
Well, you know the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
What's true, Pareto, for those of you who don't know, it was an Italian economist who was also a gardener. He discovered in his research that looking out in his pea garden that 20% of the pea pods yielded 80% of the peas. And he looked around the Italian landscape and discovered that 20% of the property owners owned 80% of the land. So it has been extrapolated. And if Pareto is right about the 80-20 rule, and he is because it's been shown to be true, then only 20% of your efforts yield 80% of your outcomes.
So you need to sit down and kind of take a time out and make some hard looks at how you're using your time and which things have the most impact on other things? Is that what you need to be doing?
20% of your clients yield 80% of your profits. 20% of your clients yield 80% of your headaches. 20% of your efforts with respect to your staff yield 80% of your results.
That's true. And you know what? I've worked with people in this, and when they do networking, and they say, "Well, I'm networking. I'm going to all these meetings." I said, "Well, is activity productivity? What's the return on that investment?" And for lawyers, it's difficult because sometimes you're not going to get a tangible return. We're not talking about transactions. But a lot of times you'll spend time working on something that doesn't have a big return or that somebody else could do. So we could probably spend 2 days talking about how to get clear on what's important. What's something else? Somebody says, I have some pretty good idea of what's important to me. What's some tangible thing they could do to get control of their time?
The next thing to do, once you're clear, is then to say no to what's not working.
No.
To say no. And I think you invited me as a guest columnist for the CBA about 18 months ago, and I wrote a column on the importance of saying no. And we have all had those experiences as practitioners where you've had the client and the client has been just a challenge over the course of time, and maybe a slow pay, and maybe cantankerous, and you finish the matter and you say, grand, that's done. And then the client's back in front of you. He or she has another matter, and the previous engagement has been a nightmare, but the cash flow is tight and payroll is coming up. And you're sitting in the conference room and you're having the conference with this potentially new matter, and everything in your body is saying, no,
run away.
Run away. And you say yes. And it works out exactly the way it worked out last time or the time before, and you regret it. And you make mistakes, or there's a grievance. Saying no to what doesn't work, to clients that don't work, to situations that don't work. The networking thing is a beautiful example. You know, if you look back at your networking experiences and your contacts and your organizations, there are certain groups that you've gotten wonderful business from. And there's certain things you've done for years that haven't returned any investment. Say no to those things. By saying no artfully and learning to say no, I recorded in our business last year a wonderful program. In fact, I will make it available at no charge to the CBA as a link called The Art of Saying No, because there is an art to it. I mean, you just don't want to run roughshod over people's needs. There's an art to saying no, but the power to say no is one of the most powerful ways to manage your time. I will tell you, I love lists. I love lists so much. I'll make this public. I'm the type of person who makes a to-do list, and I'll put things that I've already done on my to-do list because I love to cross things off on my to-do list. But your to-do list is not your most important list. The things that you are going to stop doing is your most important list.
So get clear.
Get clear.
And say no. What's one more tip our viewers could take away today?
Okay. Once you're clear, once you say no, then you've got to dial in that plan for where you want to end up, being clear about it. So you get to your destination in your car by putting a coordinate in your GPS. It gets you there within 30 feet. But if you don't dial in that coordinate, you'll never get there. You'll never get there. And what so many of us do in our adult lives, we wake up rudderless and we end up being reactive all day to things rather than keeping the eye on the destination. You know, if you showed up at Bradley International Airport this afternoon and said, "Give me a ticket," they'd say, "Sure, Mr.
where?
Brown. Where would you like to go? Orlando, San Francisco, or Barcelona?" Okay. Which one?
So use that first two steps of
what you value
what
most.
you value, saying no, and then have a specific plan of where you want to accomplish.
Specific destination as
A
to
destination.
where, as to where you want to end up. The most powerful question that we can ask in any interaction. I don't care whether it's an interaction with a potential client or a judge or a teenager or a partner, is what do I want the outcome to be?
That's right.
What is my outcome?
That's such a powerful concept. I've used it in my coaching.
Yes.
And when you stop and say, well, whether it's an interaction with a client or even with an adversary in a courtroom, taking 2 seconds to say, what's the outcome I want from this activity, is a very, very powerful and effective tip.
And I want to latch on to something that you just said.
Sure.
The 2 seconds. Stopping, doing less, taking time to be mindful and to reflect. It sounds paradoxical, but less is more.
Sure.
The time to reflect, the time to get clear pays dividends across time.
So basically, before you start worried about all the tactics of time management you might read about online and other places, you really got to focus on what you want, why you want it, and let that drive all the tactics.
You and I can teach tactics blindfolded. It's not the tactics. There are dozens and dozens of great time management programs. But it's not the tactics, it's the mindset.
It's the mindset.
It's the mindset.
Well, that's a great takeaway for today. That's all the time we have for now. I want to encourage you to focus on your time, take these tips, and take a few minutes right now to think about, write down for yourself what's important to you, and a couple things you might have always wanted to start saying no to that you might be able to start saying no to now. So for Walt Hampton, this is Doug Brown for the Connecticut Bar Association, and we'll see you next time.